All right, guys, welcome back to Marlins 9. As always, I'm Jeremiah Geiger. Thursday edition of the podcast, recording this on Wednesday, and joined by a special guest, Kevin Barral from Fish on First. Kevin, thanks for coming on the pod.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so we'll get right into it. 0-7. Marlins get swept today at the moment of this recording. First four games lose to Pittsburgh, and then they drop three against the Angels at home to close out the homestand. 0-7. I mean, where do you go? What's the mood right now?
Feels like a tale of two series. I've had more time to kind of look back, look at one series, look at the other, kind of compare the two. You look at the first series, the Pirates, they really relied on the pitching. I mean, you had almost a full rotation go, four of them, at 4 out of the 5. Luzardo looked great. AJ Puck really couldn't handle the control too much. Control command was a big issue for him. Ryan Weathers gave him what they needed, just wasn't enough at the end. And then you go with Trevor, who had a very nice outing. And it kind of comes back to the bullpen, honestly, man. I mean, you look at the struggles. Gone with Declan Cronin twice. They had to send him down. You went with Vladimir Gutierrez. They had to DFA him. It's been a carousel, man, and it's definitely been tough. The offense looked really good, to be honest with you. That series, they had multiple games where they had leads on opening day and on that Sunday game, I want to say, or yeah, the Sunday game when Nick Gordon hit that home run. They were up by 4 twice. They blew that twice. I mean, that just can't happen. And that's why I saw the Pittsburgh series. Now, man, they got unlucky too. There were moments there. Then you have the Angels series where it was definitely a struggle. Pitching wise, they just weren't able to figure out the Angels pitching. Tyler Anderson had one hell of a start. Goes 7 shutout innings. The changeup was just unstoppable for him. Got every single strikeout on the night with the changeup. And then you have today with Patrick Sandoval. I mean, he really incorporated everything he had, and it worked out. There's not much you can do. On the positive side, Max Meyer looked really good. Not much you can do there when you're facing Mike Trout, but very interesting pitch choice, I would say, with Max Meyer with the changeup. In my opinion, not one of his better, by far his worst pitch, but still, it's getting there. And to have the confidence to go 3-2 right down the middle to Mike Trout with the changeup, certainly a choice, but it's Mike Trout, so you can't do much there. But yeah, I mean, it's been tough. You see these guys' reaction. You had that play yesterday on Tuesday, that double play with Avi Garcia, just a bad decision to make that swing there. You would have thought it was going to be a hit and run, and at the end of the day, we found out that it was more of it was going to be a double steal, a straight double steal. It looked like Avi thought he had a really good pitch, which it was, and it just ended up not being what he wanted. So what happened, what they needed there, and Jazz made a silly mistake not touching third. So tough series. Got to go to St. Louis now. New atmosphere. Hopefully that works out for them. Getting out of Miami for a bit, and then they go to New York. Doesn't get much easier than that.
Well, the narrative really what is starting to develop as the Marlins are the first team since 2016 to go 0-7. Of course, the Braves and Twins were 0-9. You're coming off the postseason. You start winless the first two series, and it's this narrative that's building throughout, all of MLB of like, oh, the Marlins still haven't won a game. But you mentioned the Avisail Garcia, the double steal, and he popped it up. And that's kind of a microcosm of how these last two series have been. It's not that the Marlins have been out of it. They haven't got blown out every single game. You could argue that they could have won 3 games legitimately, 2 against Pittsburgh. They really gave away. And then against Los Angeles, the offense went stagnant against Tyler Anderson. There's been ups and downs. This team last year probably wins 2 or 3 of these games, and there's a lot to improve on. But the errors and the way they're losing gets magnified that much more. You mentioned the Garcia play. I think of today, for example, Vidal Brujan, a brutal error at third base.
That was really bad.
Like it's bad, and like these plays get magnified so much more when you're losing. So, I mean, moving forward, you said like it doesn't get any easier. This month is brutal. And Skip knows it. The players know it, because now you're 7 games behind the 8 ball. You're 7 games under 500, and this thing like can get away in a hurry. Like by Memorial Day. And I'm probably one of the most optimistic fans there are. I mean, I've talked with you plenty, and I try to keep a positive outlook on the team, but you start going 0-7, you lose the series against St. Louis, you're pushing 10 games under 500. Like you can't do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is I wouldn't say make or break. Well, I'll definitely make or break. Actually, I would retract that statement. Definitely make or break type series where you feel the pressure, but you have to also look at it. I mean, just last year the Marlins lost 8 in a row, so it's not like this is something new for them. They went 0-8 out of the All-Star break. Again, different point of the season where you aren't falling behind. You're kind of over 500, where you were able to kind of have those 8 losses in there, but it's a lot different with the first at the start of the season. You're 0-8. You have to come back now 8 games or 0-7. I'm sorry. You have to come back 7. You have to get 7 wins after that to kind of get yourself back on track. And man, that's why really, you're looking to sweep the Cardinals at Busch Stadium. They really need to do that to at least go under 4 games under and then afford a couple losses against the Yankees. Because honestly, I don't think anyone's stopping the Yankees.
No, the Yankees are looking really good. And again, the Marlins didn't play super well away from home. So, like, I don't know, last year, they had a really good record in Miami, away from Miami, not as much. And now you're going to St. Louis, you're on the road, but there's no place to go but up. The problem, first topic we're going to get into really, you mentioned the bullpen. Bullpen's been terrible. It's been downright awful. Which, looking back at last season, it was the complete opposite. And you had guys come and go, and your 2 big dogs coming out in the late innings, Andrew Nardi and Tanner Scott, haven't done anything, haven't done absolutely anything to contribute to success this season. The bullpen has just been a complete liability. The back end, Tanner Scott with the walks are becoming an issue. He's already walked 6, I believe, in only 2-3 innings worth of work. The control's not there. Nardi's giving up hits. And then you got middle of the order middle relievers. Like, when your starters aren't going deep into ball games and Brian Hoeing is coming in 4 innings and 3 innings, and then Vladdy Gutierrez is coming in giving you 4 innings. And these guys, like, now you're turning to Birch Smith and Kent Emmanuel. It's bad.
Yeah, and expect a roster move there with Emmanuel tomorrow.
DFA?
Yeah, probably. If I had to guess. I know. I mean, you have to think about it too. The guy went 4 innings, 50 pitches. They can't use him for another couple days, so it won't be Cronin. It'll have to be a DFA, and you're gonna have to bring someone up. I thought it was going to be Darren McCacken, who was starting today for AAA. It'll probably be Yoni Chirinos if I had to make the guess. I'm not quite sure on that though. With Nardi, I'm not too worried about Nardi, man. I mean, he's been for the most part all right. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with Tanner Scott. It's really looking like his 2021 self. I think the last save opportunity. I don't know if it was a save opportunity. It was that first game with the Angels. Reminds me going back to that New York Mets series in Queens in 2022 where he blew it, and it was that BA. It was a Brian Anderson play there at third. He had ball with the ball. That's the one I remember at least, and that was one of that may have been by far his worst blown save as a Marlin. And that's kind of what I remembered with that Angels game right there, that, his last time out there. But I'm not too worried about the bullpen in terms of like Nardi and Scott. You kind of look back and losing out on Matt Moore, that definitely hurt the team. He came into this series, I believe, twice, and he was really good. Aside from that, George Soriano, I think Skip said it best. It's just like he's lost the slider. At one point, people were making the case that his slider, Soriano's, was better than what Max Meyer's slider is right now, or was even prior to Tommy John. So it's you're really high on him. And Brian Hoeing's been honestly a savior for the Marlins this season. You can't really blame anything on him at this point. He's been really good. Sixto, he's been all right, honestly. I mean, there's not much you could say about him. He's been in there. He's done his job. Aside from that, Anthony Bender really, I mean, still getting it going from Tommy John. He's still getting, building back up all the way. But yeah, the Birch Smith one, that's the one that really still stuns me that he is on the roster. He has minor league options. They could send him down if they want. Honestly, they should be calling up Anthony Maldonado, in my opinion. Dude's
I
lights
agree.
out. He's really freaking good. AAA guy, 40 man. He was added on to it, I believe, this offseason, along with Victor Mesa Jr. So definitely think they should call up Anthony Maldonado. Aside from that, man, there's not much more. Declan Cronin should hopefully come up back soon. They really needed to send him down just get build back up in terms of just, they use him way too much. They had to make a move there. They weren't just going to let him sit in the bullpen when they needed arms. And the other name that I'm very surprised that hasn't come up yet, and actually it could possibly be the move tomorrow, is Calvin Fauché, who's on the 40-man roster. In that case, you could just easily DFA. Send down Emmanuel, but I doubt that happens. They need to add a long man in that bullpen. But Fauché hitting 96 and 97 out of the pen for the Marlins could happen. I really do think there's a lot better options in AAA right now. And if there's one thing this organization has done well, in terms of development, it's always developing relievers. And they've done it with Nardi. They're doing it with Hoeing now, who's a reliever. You have your homegrown guys. George Soriano's a homegrown guy as well. And you have to be very excited about what you have in the bullpen nonetheless. So we'll see. Definitely still a long ways to go for this season. I know it's been a struggle, but there is reasoning to think that this bullpen will tidy up soon. Once you get an off day, a couple off days a week or once a week, this off day coming up, I think it's on Friday, they're going to need that big time. They're going to need it as well next Thursday. So once the Marlins begin to get off this, because remember, you're playing 7 straight games. You're going to play one tomorrow. Then you're getting the off day. You're playing 8 games in 8 days. And, a couple of them are day games. Definitely stressful for the Marlins, so you're going to need those off days. And I think that's when the bullpen will kind of settle itself down.
In credit to Brian Hoeing, you mentioned him, and I've tweeted out about him a couple times now. He's done wonders for this pitching staff, coming in and giving the Marlins, eating up some innings where you need it. First series, Declan Cronin, again, I thought he was going to be a guy that, he really surprised me and went 3 innings, pitched really well. But it's just because of the arms and because, guys get tired. You can't have guys throwing 3 innings back-to-back days, stuff like that. He had to go down. So I was a little upset at the move at first, but I understand the logic behind it.
Yeah.
It's just you really got to see, ultimately, I think what it ties back to is the rotation not giving you enough innings. They haven't completed 6. Not Luzardo pitched 5 1/3 against Los Angeles, and that's it. Like, he's gone 5 and 5 1/3. Puck's hasn't gone more than 4. Ryan Weathers has gone 4. Meyer's gone 5. Like, that's a lot of innings that need to be eaten up by relievers that not necessarily have the stamina to do so. So I personally, one of my biggest gripes of this year so far is seeing these guys not being able to give you any length. I know they're experimenting with AJ Puck, but there comes a point when it's like, 2 innings, 4 innings isn't going to cut it. Ryan Weathers, same thing. You want to see Trevor Rogers continue at least 5 innings, but I think one of the biggest problems is the length that they're going.
Yeah, you also have to think of, the rotation they're going out with. You mentioned it.
Right.
Because making this transition from a reliever to a starter, I believe he's gone 6 innings before. He did it in spring training. But again, it's not the same. You're going up against the regulars every single time, up and down the order. And credit to the Angels offense, man. They really adjusted and maybe I noticed it. Maybe I'm probably not the only one who noticed, but you look at specifically Aaron Hicks in this series, strikes out back-to-back games, first time up in the order, and really just gets it going after that. I look specifically at the Max Meyer one in game 1, and then you have Puck today, where he strikes out Aaron Hicks to begin the game. Aaron Hicks gets him again. And it feels like these guys are making super quick adjustments on these pitchers from one inning to the next, and definitely something to be concerned about. But again, Puck, reliever to starter. Trevor Rogers coming back from a big injury. Max Meyer's coming back from Tommy John. And what Skip told us about Max specifically is just like, this guy's going to get it's going to be almost as limited as what Yuri was last season. I don't think it'll be a case where he's going to get called up and then come back up, but definitely, making the case where there is a chance that he could really be limited and at some point be shut down, if I had to assume. But, this is us again. This rotation is depleted. You have Edward Cabrera, Yuri Perez, Braxton Garrett all out. Thankfully, 2 out of the 3 are set to come back fairly soon. Hopefully, in the next homestand at some point. But you also have to tell yourself, once those guys start coming back, maybe things will settle down a little bit. I do think there's a good chance that I could see AJ go down to AAA, get some starts down there. He has minor league options. He's able to do it. It makes a lot of sense too. You could bring back another righty, and you could kind of lengthen out the rotation there. So definitely some options when it comes to those guys coming back. And right now, that's another big reason, and it's a good point you make with the length. That's a big reason why you're seeing guys like Vladimir Gutierrez having to come up, or Declan Cronin having to give you 3 innings of work. And, it's also some of the games, just the outcome, the offense not giving you enough support. Today, 10-2 ball game. You had to go with, I believe it was Birch Smith at some point and Kenton Emanuel, and then the other day, Vladimir had to give you 4 innings of work because Trevor Rogers wasn't able to give you 6. And coming into the season, you had a good feeling not every guy was going to give you 6. Luzardo is really your only hope to give you 6 innings.
Yeah.
And maybe if he has a really good start, it would be Ryan Weathers. Aside from that, I really find it hard to see Trevor Rogers give you 6 innings of strong work, as well as Puck and Meyer.
It's tough, and a lot hinges on the return of Garrett and Cabrera. I mean, dealing with the shoulder injuries, they're on their way back, but if you want any chance to stay competitive, obviously Sandy's out for the year, and we don't know the timetable with Yuri, if he's going to come back, when that would be. But you need Edward Cabrera to come back, and you need Braxton Garrett, because right now, like, you're hanging on by threads, because one injury to this rotation, if Puck can't go, if Rogers can't go, then you're really in trouble. Like,
Exactly.
You've been in trouble, but you're going to really be in trouble. And now you still haven't won a game. Like, it might be throwing the white flag before this thing even starts. So you got to get your version of Edward Cabrera and Braxton Garrett healthy back in the rotation, because last year Garrett was consistent. He would give you 5, he'd pitch 6, and he was really effective. I think he would slide right back into probably the second best starter, at least the most consistent starter behind Luzardo. And then you got Edward Cabrera just got to cut down on the walks. With the rehab start, everyone's like, oh, it's great news. But look at the walks. He walked 4 in 3 innings. It's like, he just can't get past that hurdle. But he's going to be needed. He's going to be needed in a big way. So that's kind of the vision I'm looking at when it comes to the rotation. Another bit of news. We talked about this a little bit. Emmanuel Rivera getting acquired from the D-backs for cash considerations. Jacob Amaya is a victim of this move, getting DFA'd. I hate that Amaya's DFA'd. I want to get your thoughts. But Rivera, third baseman, really good defensive glove, which the Marlins need after looking at Vidal Brujan over there today. But just give me your initial thoughts with this move.
Yeah, I'm going to go quickly and check where we have him in the rankings. We have him, I believe, very high. We have him at 7. So at Fish on First, we have our top 30. We have him at 7. I believe we're the highest on him, actually, when it comes to just the other outlets. MLB Pipeline, I think, has him around 9. Baseball America, I believe. Actually, Baseball America may have him even higher at like 5. So it just shows, again, how depleted the system can be. But at the same time, it shows that this is a guy who, despite having a cup of coffee, struggling, he's still a very good baseball player. I think he's a very good defensive player. When they first acquired him for Miguel Rojas in that trade, if everyone remembers, I mean, it was glove first, we'll work on the bat. And the bat certainly seemed like it was good. I mean, through that first half, right before he got called up, this dude was mashing, man. He was hitting very well. It was a very good approach, cut down on the strikeouts. He was walking more, putting the ball in play. I mean, everything was clicking for this guy. And it looked like after that cup of coffee in the major leagues, that felt like some sort of confidence hit that really got him, and he was sent down and he struggled. Still playing a good shortstop, but aside from that, it's definitely a weird cut. But at the same time, you have to tell yourselves you can't cut a pitcher because you need flexibility on the 40 man to move them up and down. You're not going to cut one of your top guys in the system. I mean, you look down, you're not going to cut a Dane Myers who will 100%.
No way.
You're not going to do it with VMJ. You can't do it with a lot of the guys on the 40-man roster currently, and there's not many. So you have to tell yourself, who are you going to cut? And there's not many. Those are really the only 40-man guys. So the hope is that Amaya goes through waivers. I do see there's a chance they could slip through waivers, but then there's a team that could say, we need a shortstop. We need someone who could help us out. He's gotten major league experience. That's just how I look at it. They could have definitely gone and DFA'd Brujan. I just don't see that happening. You traded someone who, at Fish on First, we thought was a excellent prospect in Eric Lara for Fauché and Brujan. We thought he was very good. They ended up including Jake Mangum in that trade, who almost made the Rays opening day roster. So a lot of, guys you sent away there to bring back. And, one of them is close to being a DFA limbo. The other one's in AAA. So definitely an interesting move there thus far. But you have to tell yourself, that was probably the only move they could have made. And they're, at this point, it's like, if you lose him, you lose him. But you hope to at least get something in return for him. You hope a team jumps in the waiver wire and says, we'll do a trade, cash considerations for Amaya, something like that, or a player to be named later, which I think everyone hopes that's the case usually when it comes to those type of trades. But yeah, you said best. I mean, they could have used him defensively. He could have been like that, what Nassim could have been for the Marlins in a couple of years. Defensive shortstop, could play the infield well, could be a pinch runner, and you hope the bat is at least at 250 average with a 710, 720 OPS, somewhere around there in the 85 to 90, 95 WRC plus range, which is, below league average, but not that below where you're saying, this is not a very good player, but at the end of the day, things happen. And I really do like Emmanuel Rivera. This is definitely a guy who has a lot of years of control. I believe around 4. We'll see how long he's a Marlin in terms of the ARB, because you know how that works with Peter Bendix now. Very good lefty hitter, so they're definitely going to use him there. He's going to be like a utility type guy. He will meet the team in St. Louis tomorrow, so expect a roster move there. I think just looking at the roster, I think everyone knows what that'll be. He's now on the 40-man, so just kind of take your looks, and it's very evident who it'll be. But yeah, I like the acquisition. Definitely good power. Love the defense. Nine DRS in a couple of years in the major leagues. He had a very good year in 2022 when he got traded from Kansas City to Arizona. I love the guy. Now, is it one of those big trades? No, I mean, it's a smaller trade. This is essentially just a replacement for what John Birdie was with the Marlins. But I like the player. He's cut down on the strikeouts these past couple of years. You look at 2022, he was at 23.1, goes down to 19.8. He also increases the walk, so the walk percentage. So there's a lot to like with Rivera. It kind of feels like one of those bounce back candidates, but he had a very good Caribbean series. He played here. He's comfortable here. He did the World Baseball Classic as well as the Caribbean series. So he's comfortable in Lone Depot, and I'm excited to see him being used. I believe he'll get some games. I don't know if the Cardinals are going with 3 straight lefties, but he'll definitely get a game in or two.
No, I like the move as well. I think it's pretty much like a replacement for John Birdie on his spot on the roster and what he meant to this team, in the sense of he's versatile and he can hit. He'll be in that platoon role, swinging from the left side. I mean, like you said, the Amaya move, it was necessary. Just looking at the roster, it's a testament to the strengths and weaknesses of the system, of the farm system. Personally, I see it all kind of ties back to Peter Bendix and his vision for this team, which we'll get into, because I look at a guy like Jacob Amaya and I look at a guy like Vidal Brujan, and I tend to think that Brujan isn't going to figure it out. I mean, he's a career hitter, 184, I believe. It's under 190. And it's just something where, okay, how is he going to contribute to this team making the postseason? How is he going to contribute to the team's long-term plans? And then you got guys like Jonah Bride coming in. It's the same kind of deal. I don't know if they're ever going to figure it out. But for the Emmanuel Rivera trade, I think it's a good acquisition, like you said, and he's going to contribute in a meaningful way this year. It's not going to move the needle a ton, but it is something, because honestly, I think the Marlins are going to miss John Birdie the rest of this year, but the addition of Rivera kind of closes the gap that Birdie left a little bit, I think.
And you're adding more power too. I mean, this is a guy who hit 12 home runs in 2022. You're not going to get that every year. I mean, the guy is, I don't even know how old he is. He's probably up there in age
27.
already. 27, exactly. And, we'll see. I mean, definitely over an upgrade in terms of age over what John Birdie was, which was like 34. So, this definitely is a nice little acquisition for the team.
Birdie was that old?
He was either 34, 36. It was
Yeah.
very old.
You see how he looks like without the beard now? Like it's weird.
It's very weird. He is 34 years old. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. See, well, without the beard, he looks like 25. But
that's what the Yankees want. You got to make him look young.
They did the same with Alex Verdugo. It's Carlos Rodon, another one.
Yeah, man, they look weird. It's weird.
But the Peter Bendix thing, it's like, so as a fan base, the Marlins fans, like, they're never satisfied, right? No matter what, like, you make the postseason, okay, we're gonna do it again, and you see this like 2 series in, the world's crashing. What is the vision for Peter Bendix? That's kind of what I've been thinking today, as the past week, as the Marlins continue to struggle. He comes in, he obviously has a way of doing things, spent so much time in Tampa. I imagine he's looking at this farm system and it's completely depleted, aside from, the pitching, which is always producing. You got Noble Meyer, Thomas White, who I think are going to be absolute studs. But as for the hitters, you just haven't produced. You haven't hit in the draft. And you got to think Bendix, he's been ingrained in Tampa's philosophy where it's develop players and you grow your teams. You homegrown all your guys, and that's how you compete. And you see moves like Jonah Bride, you see moves like Vidal Brujan, and bullpen moves where you're not calling up Anthony Maldonado and you're calling up Burke Smith and, Kent Emmanuel. And it's just, what is going on here? It's a little confusing. What do you see his vision as?
I wish I could tell you, man. It's too early, I would say. I mean, you look at this roster right now, and no one's going to care. He's not going to, well, obviously he cares. He wants to win, but Bruce Sherman isn't going to tell him, look, you're done after this year. No, I mean, no matter,
not at all.
They could lose 110 games if they want. Nothing's going to happen. I mean, they're going to get a very nice draft pick, and they're going to use that guy as the building block for the future. And that's going to be their top prospect, most likely, because this is, again, as you said, a very depleted farm system. Man, and you talk about these little small moves. Tampa did this too. Tampa does the same thing. No one talks about it, because then you get that one guy who turns into a very good player, and that's the one they're going to talk about. Luke Raley, for example. This guy was I think he was traded by the Dodgers. Very high strikeout rate. Still had it when he got to Tampa, but that guy was a stud with the Rays for his 2 years there. He gets traded in that Jorge Caballero trade, which brings them back a shortstop. Obviously, you know why they need a shortstop. So, there's a reasoning for that. And, man, Tampa makes moves that no one talks about. But, the one difference with Tampa that won't happen with Miami is the spending. Tampa's actually been spending a little bit more recently. The Zach Eflin contract not too long ago, there were rumors about Freddie Freeman when if you guys remember that free agency with them. I believe at some point some were even suggesting Ohtani to Tampa. You have to tell yourself, will Miami ever be like that? Maybe not. But Peter Bendix needs to rebuild the system first. I mean, there's no question that had to happen. If it was with Kim, if it was with Mike Hill, or if it was with now Peter Bendix, that farm system needed to get rebuilt, needed to look like what it was after a couple years of the Derek Jeter era. I mean, that had to happen. No matter what, you have to look at it and you have to tell yourself, this is probably one of the worst farm systems in baseball. The Angels is horrid. Then you have Houston, which is pretty bad. Maybe after that, it's Miami. I mean, it's not very far off. I mean, you look at what you mentioned it, the pitching. Noble Meyer, Thomas White, very good. Patrick Monteverde, 26 years old. That's kind of a quad A player very soon. Troy Johnson on the hitting side, almost 27. Really?
He never got a shot either.
That too, and I think he will at some point. I mean, hopefully he does. Yeah, Anthony Maldonado is getting up there in age. I mean, these aren't really prospects if you look at the age. You don't have many young guys, and that's what they're going for. That's why they make this trade with John Birdie, where they bring in a very good prospect, I think, in John Cruz. You get a Shane Sasaki, who's up there in age, but certainly someone to really like in the system. That's why you have a Victor Mesa Jr., who I really like. I think he's going to be very good. And I mean, Luis Cova, who they brought, they're going to bring in Andrew Salas to the system next year when they sign him into international free agency. I mean, the Marlins are building up this system year by year, and this is why you saw Peter Bendix focus so much on the small moves, the Jonah Brides, the Vidal Brujans, the Burt Smiths, and you see them kind of building internally. You see Gabe Kapler coming into the mix, who I really like. You have Rachel Balkovic who's coming in, Frankie Pilieri, Vinesh Compton. I mean, you're bringing in all these guys who they're going to be using, and these guys come from winning organizations. You know, Gabe Kapler was with the Dodgers. He was with the Buellers, the Gavin Lux. He was a part of those Dodger systems that ended up flourishing and becoming what they are today. You have Rachel Balkovic, who was a manager, who was someone who's been in so many positions that she understands these players. She knows what she wants. And I mean, I don't know if anyone noticed, but minor league staffs take a very, very long time to get finalized. And I think you know why. Someone wanted to really look over those, and that was Peter and Rachel. And that's why it's been taking that long. I mean, you have to look at it and tell yourself, all these internal moves are going to lead to success. Frankie Pilieri has had some of the best drafts with Seattle these past couple of years. They continue to produce good talent. They're one of the better farm systems in baseball. You have to be very excited with what they did in terms of the front office. I know the product on the field isn't there, and we saw the article today with Ken Rosenthal, which doesn't make the situation much better that Luis Arias and the Padres had interested in Luis Arias, and so did they in Jesus Luzardo. So we'll see. The Arias and Luzardo thing is way too early to talk on, but that could happen. You never know. I mean, they need to make moves.
I mean, yeah, like you explained that the Peter Bendix, he does have a vision for the future, and he wants to have continued success. I think that's what it comes down to, not just spurts here and there, one playoff appearance followed by 3 seasons of losing before you get a chance to compete again. I think the issue for the fan base and the issue that I have is you come off a playoff season where you do win 84 games, you're in the second wild card spot, and the only guy you don't really retain is Sandy, who quite honestly had a really, really awful year, in terms of Sandy's standards. Obviously, you lose Jorge Soler offensively, but the pitching staff is intact, and then the injuries hit. But before that, you don't add any reinforcements offensively. You have Tim Anderson. So, yes, I know that you got to rebuild the system. And that's been a key the entire, way. As soon as Peter Bendix got hired, we knew the system had to be rebuilt. You got to infuse more talent, especially on the hitting side. But also you want to see, as fans, you come off a postseason berth, you want to see them try to make an effort to contribute to another postseason appearance. And that starts with the major league acquisitions, and they just really haven't done that. I mean, you got a guy like Skip, who's all about winning, who's infused this winning culture into the team and wins manager of the year. And now his hands are kind of tied because he's got to run out Avisail Garcia and Jonah Bride and Vidal Brujan, guys that just shouldn't be on a contending roster. Like, if this team was serious about contending in 2024, then they should have made more moves than just Tim Anderson. Because now you're looking at 2025. Is that what you're shooting for? Are you shooting for, all right, when Sandy comes back, we're going to go into 2025, with that free agency period, and that's when we're going to return? I don't know. It's frustrating because for years you saw it with Jeter, and you did see the system build, but you saw a lot of those prospects fail. And as a fan, you almost wonder, okay, are we going to be in this limbo stage where it's like this purgatory of, we're not really bad enough to tear it all down like the 2013 Astros, but we're not good enough to compete for a World Series. And then you got guys like Luis Arias and Jesus Luzardo. You mentioned the article that Rosenthal had about the San Diego Padres taking interest. I mean, you can get a lot of prospect talent for them, but you're also throwing in the towel and you're saying, all right, we got to reset yet again. And that for me is like, coming into this year, I truly believed this team can compete. And I believe when they're healthy, I think this team can compete for a wild card spot. I really do. It's tough now. You put yourself behind so far, going 0-7, and now you have all the injuries and the struggles and just no help from the front office. It makes it that much more difficult.
Yeah, it's definitely difficult. And I think a good point that, I was talking to Isaac, I think it was right before the season started. It's like the Mets aren't going to be very good. The Nationals still another year away. You have the Cardinals, who don't seem like they're going to be much better. Kind of have a little window to kind of strike here and at least make another playoff appearance. But again, I mean, you have to look at it and you have to tell yourself, like, it's such a weird situation with this team, man. Because at the same time, you knew at some point this was going to happen. They were going to rebuild. But again, you have to tell yourself, yeah, they made the playoffs, but this is going to be almost a completely new front office, man. I mean, it's not just the changes that have been reported. It's the ones that are going on internally that no one's talking about. I mean, they're going to, man, when I say this organization is going to be the Rays, they're going to be the Rays. There's going to be a lot of unpopular decisions. They're going to attack this international market like no other. They're going to draft like no other. They're really trying to hammer home the homegrown talent. Right now, you look at the Marlins roster, the only homegrown player on the position player side is Nick Fortes. And that's out of necessity. The next one in line would be someone like a Will Banfield. You have a Troy Johnson. Those are more homegrown guys, as we kind of mentioned. But you look at the Marlins lineup right now, there's not a single homegrown talent there. The closest you will get to is Jesus Sanchez, who came here fairly young in the trade with Nick Anderson. But aside from that, that's it. You Trevor Rogers, Max Meyer on the pitching side. Then you have Nardi Soriano and Brian Hohen. That's it. 5 players who are homegrown. That can't happen. And then go to other teams. Go to the Dodgers, for example. Those guys, they may have spent $700 million on like a Shohei Ohtani, but they still have a lot of homegrown guys. You look at the Padres, a lot of homegrown guys. That's just how it is nowadays. There's teams like that do it. You could even go to a smaller market, Tampa, a lot of homegrown guys. And, that's the best comparison you're going to get if you're the Marlins. Tampa, maybe Atlanta, if you want to go to there. I mean, they have a lot of homegrown guys as well. That's just something the Marlins are going to have to home in on. And that's really the big point of not a rebuild. I think the word retool has been mentioned a couple times, and I think that's the right way to say it. Now, do I agree with it? Probably not. I think just like Marlins Twitter, I see it all day long. These guys want to win. I mean, I think that clubhouse wants to win no matter what the situation is, no matter who's at the front office. They want to win. Luis Ariz is there to win. Tim Anderson signed here not only to reestablish his value, but to win. I mean, this guy wants to win. He thinks he's going to play every single day. He wants to win. I mean, if you don't want to win, what are you doing? And that is what it is at the end of the day. I know, the Avi Garcia thing, there's not much you can do about that. He's getting paid $12 million for 2 more seasons. They'll decline the club option. That's it. They're not going to DFA him. They're not going to eat the money. That's just not going to happen. I don't see that happening. I could have seen it happening with Kim Eng. I think they would have cut Avi had it been Kim. There's a lot of different things that would have happened had it been Kim. But we'll see. First year of Peter Bennett. So let's give him a time. I know they're 0-7 right now, but there's a lot of games left to play. I mean, over 120 games left to play. So give it time. Injuries obviously have killed the Marlins. I think this could have been a lot different had they had Uri, Braxton, Edward in that rotation. And maybe 2025 is their year, as you mentioned, Jeremiah. I mean, they have Sandy coming back. The pitching gets better and better. You could probably trade an arm, honestly, at some point. So you look at it and you trade an arm, you're bringing a couple more, maybe a position player back, a big leaguer, like a Luis Ariz type trade. And then you're looking at a different situation in 2025. But that's not going to be that's going to be a difficult year in terms of just what teams are doing. You look at the Mets, they said that's their target year to start competing once again. St. Louis may be a lot better by then with a couple other prospects coming up. Washington by then, I mean, they're gonna be lethal in this NL East once James Wood comes up and all those guys start coming up. I mean, it's gonna be difficult, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's not gonna get any easier. Phillies aren't going anywhere. Braves are set for. They keep fleecing the entire MLB with the contracts they give out to their players. It's good for them, but I mean, I hate the Braves, so never gonna support that. We're going to get in the mailbag. So today kind of tweeted out, asked fans, I said, drop some top topics you wanted to see on the pod. So got a couple good ones here. First one is from Ray Masuda. And he said, kind of what you tied into. He said, will we ever see a player come up through the Marlins system, be great, and stay his entire career? No disrespect to Conine, but it's kind of sad our Mr. Marlin played here 5 of his 17-year career while being on 6 different teams. We blew it with Cabrera. Will Yori be next? So, first one, I mean, Kevin kind of answered this one already. There's no homegrown players right now. Like, the closest thing you have is Jesus Sanchez, and he didn't even start his career in the Marlins system. It was with Tampa.
Well, not honestly, same thing goes with Conine. Jeff Conine didn't start his career with the Marlins. It was with the Royals, so that doesn't even count.
Yeah. So, I mean, traditionally, like, this team doesn't do that, right? It's unfortunate because you see a lot of teams do it, quote unquote, the right way, where they take guys and they draft them. It's, grow the arms, buy the bats, that kind of philosophy. You saw Chicago, you saw Atlanta do it. I mean, Atlanta does it with their hitters probably better than anybody. And that's just a well-run, well-oiled organization.
Top to bottom.
So, top to bottom. And it proves they got a World Series championship out of it. I think my answer to this question would be time is going to tell, because you haven't seen it during the Loria days. It was never going to happen during the Jeffrey Loria days. Early Bruce Sherman, early Derek Jeter. I think they tried. That's the answer. You saw guys like Lewis Brinson, coming over in trades, Isan Diaz coming over, making their major league debut, and just not being able to stick in the big leagues. They weren't able to do it, and you had to reset again. So now you got Kim Ng last season. You finally break through and make the playoffs. Kim Ng leaves, and now you got Peter Bendix, and we're still waiting to see the results of his vision for this team. So my opinion is that we just don't know yet. Like, maybe there's going to be a guy in this upcoming draft. Maybe Noble Meyer's a guy, Thomas White, that turns into a perennial all-star. Right now, I can tell you it ain't going to be Jacob Berry, that's for sure. But that's my answer to that.
Yeah, I think, you look at it, it'll happen at some point. I mean, there's way too many guys in the minor league system to say they're all going to miss. That's one will hit. I really like Thomas White. I think Thomas White is miles ahead of Noble Meyer right now. He kind of proved it during the spring. At Fish on First, we kind of, I'm not going to share too much about what we're going to do with that list, but all I'm saying is there's going to be a new number one at the top, and it'll not be Noble Meyer. It'll probably be Thomas White, just because we feel very highly of him. We think he's very good. I think he's going to be very good. No knock on Noble. Noble is really damn good. 97, 98, elevated fastball, really good secondary stuff, a lot deeper of a pitch arsenal than Thomas White, but, those are two guys to definitely look at there. I guess, Will Banfield may be the next one right now. The closest to the majors, Troy Johnson or Will Banfield. I don't think they're going to have long and successful careers right now. It's just not something you could think of when you're looking at these guys because of they're up there in age. But, Will Banfield, I think, definitely has the ability to really be here in Miami for a very long time. I think right now, you're looking at next year, you have to think of Andrew Salas. This is almost $5 million used in the international signing money for the following season to sign this guy. You hope he turns out to be better than what Jose Salas was before the Marlins. Let's see. That's what they're banking on. I know it's like a 17, 18-year-old guy, but that's where you're going to have to start telling yourself, that's how the Marlins are going to build this system. That's going to be a big, big, big part of what Bendix wants to do is get guys like an Andrew Salas, get guys like a Luis Cova, get those type of guys and build a system with them.
Yeah, it's all about the building blocks. It's all about the building blocks now for a continued run of success and hopefully multiple world championships. I'd love to see one. I was 1 year old when we had the 2003 championship. So I've watched the highlights, but to all you older Marlins fans out there, me and Kevin haven't seen any of this stuff. Like,
I wasn't even alive, man.
Yeah. Like, we've seen one playoff appearance and then the COVID year. So it's tough, but We're out here. He's covering the team. I'm podcasting. We love our Marlins, and it's not going to stop with a losing season. It's just we're going to criticize the team. We're going to give our opinion, but at the end of the day, we're still going to be watching the games, and that's what it's about. Yeah. Last question from the mailbag. It's from Liam DeVos, VOS. If I butcher your name, apologies. But he asks, at this point, would you rather stick with Sherman or go back to Loria? Both terrible owners, but at least Loria had the balls to spend money. Well, I'm going to let you take this one first because I have my answer all ready to go, but I'll let you go.
I don't even know where to go with this one. I think the best way to say it is Loria did spend the money. Look at 2012. But, you see fire sale after fire sale after fire sale, and the money just doesn't end up being spent the right way with the right players at least. They spent it, just not with the right guys. Bruce hasn't spent the money. He's been willing to spend the money. It seems like it at some points, and obviously didn't do it on the right player. I don't know, man. I'm going to go with Sherman because it's who I've seen more, who I know more about. He's a really cool guy. I've spoken to him multiple times. I'm going to go with Sherman, but I feel like I know who you're going to go with.
So, I became a Marlins fan prime Giancarlo Stanton days. Had no connection to the team, saw him hit a walk-off grand slam. The guy's right. Like, Loria did spend the money. The issue is, like, would he ever retain the players? The answer was no. Jose Reyes, gone. Mark Burley, gone. You got the whole fiasco with the stadium. So, it's tough because I want to say Bruce Sherman. I do. But there's also a kind of a sense where I think there's a little bit of fool's gold, where it's Bruce Sherman says a lot of things, you want to win, but where's the results? I don't see the results. Oh, we have money, we're going to spend it. And the biggest contract you've given out is Avi Garcia. So right now, I'm going to agree with you. I was thinking about Loria, but I really couldn't. Like, watching Christian Yelich and JT Realmuto get traded, like, that hurt. Like, that hurt me to the core of seeing my favorite players growing up just get traded for pennies on the dollar because you want to shed salary or you want to rebuild. And eventually it transitioned into Sherman. That was his beginning years. But that was all because of Loria and the position that he put them in. Like, that Giancarlo Stanton contract completely ballooned into an albatross. And you give him that contract and you never gave them a chance on the pitching staff. We look nowadays, the Marlins got all this talent and depth. Back then they didn't. I remember the Jeff Locke days. Like, like it was bad. Like, this team was throwing out Dan Herron every fifth day, and you had a line. Yeah, well, he was probably the best one of that era. Like, Wei and Chen, it was brutal. So he never, on paper, he spent money and he gave them a fighting chance with the offense, and a lot of it was luck. I don't think, JT Realmuto, Marcell Ozuna, Christian Yelich, that core that did come up homegrown was ever going to replicate itself, and I don't think Loria knew that. But, he never spent it on the pitching staff, and everybody knew that. 2016, I've talked about this year, you had a legitimate chance to reach the playoffs, and you couldn't because you had absolutely no pitching aside from Jose, rest in peace. So I would go with Sherman, but his leash is very short. I'm going to say that. Like, I want to see some on-field products soon.
Yep.
All right, guys. Well, Kevin, thank you for being on the show. If you want to promote anything, share what you guys do on Fish on First.
Yeah. As you said, fishonfirst.com. That's where you could read, honestly, all of our articles. Obviously, follow me on Twitter, as you can see on the screen. Make sure to follow the YouTube. We're always doing live streams, I believe, an hour before every game. We did one today on Wednesday because tomorrow we're not doing a 3 o'clock live stream for that Cardinals series. But we'll be back for the Yankees one. That should be very fun. We always have someone at the ballpark. We're having Noah at New York for those 3 games. So we'll have coverage from the Bronx. And yeah, man, again, I really do appreciate you for having me on. I always love talking to you, love talking Marlins. You could let me know anytime you want to have me on. I'll always be here.
Yeah, thank you again, Kevin. And yeah, Marlins 9 podcast available on all platforms. Started the YouTube channel, so if you want to watch the stream, it'll be on YouTube tomorrow. We're recording this Wednesday night. So every episode's Thursday and Sunday throughout the year. We're going to have more guests on, and hopefully we get it turned around. That's really all we can hope for. And let's go fish.
Yep.